Hello, peeps. Welcome to another episode of the Prescription for Better Living podcast. As always, I'm Dr. Hernando Carter, your board-certified internal medicine physician. Yes, your primary care extraordinaire. And again, this is the Prescription for Better Living podcast, where our goal is to discuss all things health and wellness in a hip and relatable way. Again, we want to make sure that we promote health equity, that we drive down those health disparities by increasing your health care and wellness knowledge. So you've been rocking with us for a while. Thank you and welcome back. If this is your first episode, welcome. I need you to do a few things for me. Please make sure that you subscribe to the channel. Make sure that you like the videos. Make sure that you share them. And why don't you go ahead and comment? If you have questions for us, if you have ideas for topics, anything you'd like us to discuss, you can email us. It's contact@rxforbetterliving.org. That's contact, the number 4, at rxforbetterliving.org. That's contact@rx, the number 4, betterliving.org. So we've been on a journey, everybody. We started out talking about just primary care in general and primary care healthcare models, delivery models. And then we've kind of taken this kind of path down the road of talking about mental wellness. You know, we've talked about depression. We've talked about anxiety. We've talked about therapy. We've talked about medication management for the treatment of depression, anxiety. And we started talking about just some additional tools in the toolbox that can help with talking about treating depression, anxiety. Remember, we talked about mindfulness, and I hope that that was helpful to some of you. We got a lot of good feedback and comments on mindfulness. We got people who said that they certainly had been trying mindfulness themselves and they found it helpful. And we got some people who said that, you know, this is a new concept for me, and so, but I'm going to give it a try. So hopefully that was very helpful to you. You know that we said for our 10th episode, we broke out and had special live where we just kind of talked about anything that's on your mind, but we're still on this kind of total wellness track. And I know you may be asking, well, Hernando, when are you going to talk about the stuff that we're used to hearing about high blood pressure, about diabetes, about prostate cancer and your cancer screenings? Yes, we're going to talk about all that because all that is extremely important, and that's what I do every day. But again, what we want to do is try to introduce some other concepts. We want to try and touch on some topics that maybe you don't hear about as often if you were to go to like a health fair or some sort of health summit, or where they have some healthcare providers, they're providing information, right? Because, you know, they're generally going to want to talk about the larger topic issues, you know, the things that most people want to hear about. But on this podcast, we want to talk to you about those things and we want to make them understandable, but we also want to kind of broaden your horizons. We want to broaden the glossary of your healthcare knowledge. And so that's why we're kind of introducing these topics. Plus, even though these topics are maybe sometimes not as emphasized as much, that does not mean that they're not important. They're very important. And as a matter of fact, the reason we're starting with this and staying on this kind of topic, if you will, for so long is because it's the most neglected. But it can have equal impact, if not more impact. Remember, we talked about the mind-body connection, right? And so when we're under stress, when we have depression, when we have anxiety, that can negatively impact our physical well-being and our health. If you're under stress all the time, if you're anxious all the time, you can have a higher blood pressure. If you are under stress all the time, that can cause your blood sugar to rise. Remember, we talked about those stress hormones that we use when we're under duress in our fight or flight syndrome or our fight or flight response. Well, If you're always under stress, if you're always under duress, then your body doesn't know the difference between a big bear chasing you through the woods and you just being under pressure and stress because of everyday life. It's going to respond the way it responds, and it releases those stress hormones that raise the blood pressure, that raise the blood sugar, that make you go into a storage mode and hold on to calories, and makes it harder for you to burn calories and lose weight, that contributes to obesity. So on and on and on. So there is a connection between our mental health and our physical health. But there are other things that can impact our mental well-being and our physical well-being. So I'm going to ask you a question. But before I ask you my question, I'm going to again remind you to subscribe to our channel, hit the like button, share the videos, share the channel, comment, because your engagement is important to us. Also, let me say this. We hit a milestone. We have over 100 subscribers now. So clap it up for everybody. We have over 100. When we hit the 100 subscriber mark, I put out a thank you post on all our social media and on the channel. And as soon as I put out the thank you post, we went from like 100 to like 120. And I think that there is a link, a direct correlation between something that I did differently here recently, a change that we made, and that spike in subscriptions that we had. So you see this beautiful background, you see all this beautiful lighting that we have, you see the change in some of the graphics, and I, again, decided to make an investment in Prescription for Better Living and partner with a very important local partner here in the Birmingham area, Polaris. It is a work-share space, but they also have podcasting space. It comes with wonderful lighting, it comes with sound, and it comes with this awesome gentleman who's very talented named Gary, who is making me look good right now. So that's the change, if you noticed it. You know, I think there's a direct correlation when we went from 100 subscribers, because we had been right at the 100 mark, and we're over 120 now. So thank you so much. All right, so here is the question. How much sleep do you get? When you sleep, how well do you sleep? Is it quality sleep? Is it restful sleep? Question number 2, how much do you drink? And I'm talking about alcohol, not water. Is it what will be considered excessive? Is there a connection between sleeping difficulties and mood swings, worsening mood changes, depression, anxiety, and overconsumption of alcohol? I'm not going to step on anybody's toes, but do you smoke? And I'm not talking about Newports or Cools. I'm not talking about Black and Milds per se. I'm not even talking about cigars per se. Do you celebrate 420 is what I'm asking. Do you smoke marijuana, weed, herb, the chronic? My daddy used to call it reefer. Do you smoke it? If you do, okay, that's fine. How much? Do you use an excessive amount? Because if you do, that can affect your anxiety, depression, can cause mood swings, can affect sleep. So really, too much of anything is usually not the best for you. So let's talk about sleep. How much sleep do you think the average person gets each night? Do they get 8 hours? Do they get 9 or 10? Or is it less? considering that question, how much sleep do you think the average person requires? Is it 5 hours? Is it just a few? I mean, I have patients that tell me all the time, for years, I've just been sleeping, 3, 4 hours a night. I go to sleep, I pop up, I'm ready, I'm refreshed, I'm ready to go, and I can work all day. I don't believe that. I believe that some of you have become adapted to sleep deprivation, but I believe all of our bodies work the same, and all of our bodies require sleep. Now, not everyone who has sleep problems have anxiety or depression. No. Some people have sleep disorders, and their sleep disorders. Some people have insomnia, and insomnia can be short-lived, so it can just be for a short period of time, or they can have chronic insomnia that lasts months and years. And insomnia is either having a hard time falling asleep. So when you lay in the bed and you lay there for hours and hours, that can be insomnia. It really shouldn't take you longer than, at the most, a half hour to fall asleep when you lay down. If it takes you longer than that, you might have a problem. Some people don't have a problem at all falling asleep. As soon as their head hits the pillow, boom, they crash, they're out. But after a couple of hours, they're up. And then it takes them hours to go back to sleep. That's interrupted sleep. But that is a type of insomnia as well. Some people have insomnia. Some people have even a more serious sleep disorder that makes it harder for them to go to sleep and makes it harder for them to stay asleep. And that's called sleep apnea. And I can tell you that sleep apnea is still very underdiagnosed in our community. Now, you may say, it seems like everybody I know is on a CPAP machine. Everybody I know tells me they've been diagnosed with sleep apnea. But it is still, I promise you, underreported. So a lot of patients are not reporting the symptoms that they have, or they're being unrecognized by the healthcare providers, and they're certainly underdiagnosed. So why are we talking about sleep problems? Because again, we're talking about the mind-body connection, okay? We know that a good restful sleep is good for the mind. It's good for your memory, so that, let's say you're in school, you're studying, or even on your job, you're learning a new task or what have you. You need to remember something for a meeting or presentation. When you review that information and you get a good restful sleep, you lock in, you lay down those new memories. And so it's going to be easier for you to retain those memories. If by chance you do have anxiety, depression, it's like a vicious cycle. So you're anxious, you're depressed, and so you have problems sleeping. Problems sleeping can cause exhaustion, can cause other symptoms, of course, mental fatigue, but physical fatigue. You don't feel well through the day. It can just cause your mood to be down. And then that kind of fuels the flame for what you're already dealing with. You have chronic pain. People who have chronic pain, it can be any kind. You can have arthritis. You can have lupus. You can have back problems, chronic back pain. You can have bad knees. If you don't get enough sleep, you hurt worse. A lot of people who have sleep apnea, who have chronic pain, a lot of times once you treat the sleep apnea and they get a more restful sleep, their pain level improves and decreases. So that's why I asked the question, how much sleep are you getting? How much sleep does the average person need? The average person needs at least, the goal should be 7 hours each night. Yeah, 7 hours. And here comes the hypocrite, Dr. Carter. Do you think I get 7 hours of sleep every night? I don't. Can I tell a difference the next day when I do get 7 or more hours of sleep? Absolutely. Can I tell a difference in my mood? Yes. Can I tell a difference in the clarity of my thinking? Yes. In my performance during the day at work? Yes. What's the bare minimum I need? The bare minimum, if you look at it, the bare minimum you need in order to really function at your peak level, 6 hours. Now, you shouldn't start out setting the goal for that. Set the goal for 8, right? And anytime you're trying to start a new habit, you got a plan. So you got a plan to try to get that kind of sleep. So you got to be more proactive about your day, plan ahead. And then you got to just start, set out and do something. Now, you may not be successful every time. You may hit or miss, but you got to try to do it every night. I give you a break on the weekend because I know some of y'all like to turn up. But then again, some weekends, most weekends, a lot of you can sleep in. That's probably actually, a lot of y'all probably get 7-8 hours on the weekend after you spend a night out enjoying yourself or kicking it. So the average person most people need about 7, minimum 6, 7 to 8. Some people sleep longer than that, but that's where you are. I asked about substances, alcohol, for a reason. Did you know that if you consume or overindulge in alcohol, it could cause sleeping problems? Now, that sounds like a novel concept because most of the times you hear about people, taking a glass of wine or taking a cocktail to wind down at night to relax. It makes you sleepy. It makes you drowsy. Yeah, for most people. But for some people, it amps them up, especially if you overindulge or consume too much. Well, how much is too much alcohol? I know we've heard about the studies that say, it's healthy to drink a glass or two of wine a day, right? You've heard that it's good for your cardiovascular system. The recommendation we tell people now is no more than 1 or 2 drinks per day. And I'm not talking about the drinks we get when we go out to the club where you pouring a double and you're doing all that. No, you're talking about 1.5 ounces, 2 ounces of liquor. So that would be, your granddaddy used to say, go pour me 2-3 fingers of whiskey. So that would be a little less actually than 2 fingers. That's just without ice. Those are the recommendations now, but it turns out that there's actually, we don't think, any really safe amount of alcohol that you can drink on a regular basis and it not negatively impact your health. And I don't mean to rain on anybody's parade, and I'm certainly not going to be hypocritical because I like my brown from time to time, okay? But I'm just putting it out there for you. And certainly if you're doing 2, 3, 4 drinks per night and you're having sleeping problems, you need to look at that. We talked about marijuana. Again, we hear about the medicinal benefits of marijuana, right? We hear about it helps people who have anxiety. We hear about it helps people who have depression. We hear about it helps people who have pain, who have poor appetites, nausea, like with cancer or HIV, who are losing weight. But again, too much of most things can be bad for you. Too much marijuana, overindulging, can, again, cause sleeping problems. Can cause you to have difficulty falling asleep or staying asleep. Well, why are you telling me all this? Again, we're talking about the mind-body connection, okay? And again, look at the effects that overindulging in alcohol can have on your sleep. look at the effects that overindulging in marijuana can have on your sleep. But then let's take it back to our mental wellness piece. And if you drink several drinks a night, well, let me ask, why? Is it that you just enjoy it? Or are you self-medicating? Are you using alcohol to help relieve your stress, to reduce your anxiety, to medicate your depression? Same thing with marijuana. If you're overindulging and you smoking several blunts a night, why? Is it just because you enjoy it? Or are you self-medicating anxiety, depression? Which gets us into a very important definition. It's called substance use disorder. Substance use disorder is when you are heavily dependent and relying on said substance. It can be alcohol, so you can have alcohol use disorder. But it could be marijuana, it could be pills, Percocets, pain pills. But it's when your body becomes dependent on that substance. And if you try to abstain from that substance, you have physical symptoms in your body. And so you have to use that substance no matter what. There's some people who wake up in the morning and they can't get going until they take a drink. And if they get to lunchtime without having a drink, they can't work because they're shaking so bad. There's some people that the first thing they do when they wake up in the morning is they got to smoke a blunt. They can't leave the house until they do it. And if they don't, they'll have physical symptoms. If that's you, then you may have a problem. And you may be using it to medicate your anxiety or medicate your depression. But you're actually giving yourself another problem, number one. And number two, overuse of those substances makes whatever it is, the depression, the anxiety, worse. It makes sleep worse. It makes sleep apnea worse. Just makes everything worse. So these are the kinds of things that we need to talk about. Again, I know you're used to hearing about high blood pressure and diabetes and get your prostate checked, get your mammogram. All that is important for sure. But these are the kinds of things that I think have been underrepresented when we in the medical community are doing our outreach. And this is why I'm covering those things for you. So again, this has been another episode of Prescription for Better Living podcast. Again, I'm Dr. Hernando Carter. You're a board-certified internal medicine physician, primary care extraordinaire, saying, remember, I need you to subscribe to our channel, share it with your circle, like the videos, comment on the videos. I need you to scream it from the mountaintops wherever you go. Hallelujah, Dr. Carter is here. Until next time, peace.